Thank you for joining us for this episode. Today, we're joined by Dr. Vin Dang. Vin is joining us, and he's going to be speaking about how to buy in to an MD practice on the OI Show. Well, thank you for joining us for this episode. I'm really excited to have my friend Vin with me. Vin and I have known each other probably about 5 years. Is that about right, bud? Yeah, and Vin has exploded into the optometry consulting space, and he's helping all the companies out there. We're honored to have you. Thank you for joining us for the OI Show.
Thanks, Dave. I'm honored and humbled to be on the show. In a listener, and just happy to help and happy to educate.
Yeah, well, we're the lucky ones getting to hang out with you. Vin, why don't you tell us a little bit about your practice, where you're at, and what your practice setting is like?
Sure. Yeah. So I currently practice in Bakersfield, California. We're about 2 hours north of LA. I'm in a OD/MD setting, mostly focusing on anterior seg. We have currently two ophthalmologists, one who's corneal refractive and the other one who's a general, focusing on some MIGS. And then myself and three other optometrists, including a resident. Out of school, I went to SCCO and down in Fullerton. And the way I ended up at this particular practice was, so during my last year in optometry school, I actually worked at the LensCrafters as a, pretend optician, under the pretense that as soon as I graduate, I would, they would offer me a optometry position, and they did. At the time, it was going to be like in the Monrovia setting, Pasadena area. And I said, okay, that'd be all right. I can do that. But then they were like, but here's another practice. We have a location down up in Bakersfield, California. If you're, it's a little bit of a higher volume. You'll probably see a little bit more disease, a little bit of a higher pay. Would you be interested in that? And at that time in 2007, I was like, where's Bakersfield? No one knows where Bakersfield is. All the people in California, they're like, oh, you mean Baker, like on the way to Vegas? So before I told him, let me accept this job, let me talk to my girlfriend at the time, and before I make a move like that. And so I worked at the LensCrafters. I ended up obviously taking the position. I worked at the LensCrafters in town for a couple of years, and then I got recruited out at that LensCrafters by Daniel Chang, who's the main partner at Empire Eye and Laser Center, which is where I'm currently at, and I've been there ever since.
That's awesome. So, Vin, you have this unique setting because you are a part owner in your practice. And that's not a really common thing in an OD/MD space. That's probably not something you were necessarily thinking when you took the job. That's probably not something they were thinking when they offered you the job. So explain to me how that came about, like how you asked for that process.
Yeah, absolutely. So then when they offered me the job in the very beginning, they were basically looking for an optometrist that would do, all the primary care, because, Daniel Chang did his fellowship up in Minnesota with Dick Lindstrom. And at that time, the corneal fellow, the MD fellow worked hand in hand with the OD fellow, right? So they just work hand in hand. So he saw what it was, how beneficial it was, because he would focus on doing surgeries, and then the OD would take care of everything else. So then when he had his own practice, he was like, well, that's what I want. I want an OD to work with me, to be able to basically be the gatekeeper and take care of all the glaucoma, all the diabetes, all the stuff that I don't really want to do. And so I can focus on doing the surgery. So then when he hired me on, that's what he wanted to do. So I did a lot of the pre-op, post-op care, the primary care, and I basically, shuffled, if you needed, plastics, I referred you over to the optoplastics. If you need cataract surgery, I referred it to Daniel Chang. And I did that for a few years. And then during my annual review with them, this was like probably like 3-4 years in, they were like, hey, you're doing a great job. This is exactly what we envisioned it would be like, you working side by side with us. We really like your attitude. How are you doing? Is there anything that you need? And then right at that point, I said, well, now that you mention it, what would it take for me to, maybe buy into the practice? And as soon as I said that, they were taken aback a little bit. I don't think that they expected me to just kind of straight out ask for something like that, because like you mentioned, it's not something that's fairly common, for an OD to kind of join an MD partnership. But they like the attitude, they like the drive, so they said, hey, sure, let's start a conversation. We value you as an employee, and I think you would be a great partner. And that's how it got all started.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So what do you think changed for you from becoming from going from being an associate, a worker bee, to having some skin in the game as an owner? I imagine that they weren't going to offer you, they weren't going to allow you to have that unless they already saw owner qualities in you. What do you think changed for you mentally once you became, part owner in the practice?
It's great because it gives you validation. For me, it validated that all my hard work, doing all the things that as an employee, you shouldn't have to do, because if you're just kind of like, I'm just going to clock in, clock out, but I went to all the extra meetings and things like that. So for me, it validated all the extra work that I put in, and it made me feel good. I mean, it's I hate to say it from a like a status type of thing, but it was. I mean, at the time, it's not a lot of ODs got to become partnered with the MD, so it kind of elevated my status a little bit, made me feel real good about it. And still to this day, I'm still grateful and humble and appreciate that they taken the opportunity to give me this opportunity and the chance to be partners with.
Yeah, I think one of the big things, particularly that I observed in OMD, OD practices, is that the ophthalmologist a lot of times wants the OD to help market and help grow the practice with fellow optometrists. And, when you're just an associate and you're trying to grow somebody else's business, that's a little bit difficult. But I imagine that when you were out talking to other people, when you were out, talking about the services, surgical services, particularly that you guys provide, it was a little bit easier knowing that it was part of your practice too. It wasn't just that you were growing somebody else's.
Yeah, it's taking ownership, right? I mean, it literally means taking ownership of the practice and be able to be proud of it, because it's like, I'm part of this organization, I'm part of this practice. The service that we provide is we as a team, and the beauty of it too is the MDs, it's the mutual respect, right? Because that's what we look for and that's what we strive for, and I'm sure you've heard of, other practices where, the MD hired the OD as a, glorified tech. And there was none of that here. He saw me as an equal, not as an associate or as an employee. So it made me feel really, really good that they were willing and open to, take me as a partner.
So now that you're an owner in the practice, what type of duties and responsibilities and things are you involved with different now than you were when you were just an associate?
Yeah, so now I get to participate in the board of directors, right? So the board of, obviously the company has a board, and the board of directors are the owners. So I attend, monthly board of directors meetings. We do like financial meetings, learn about, like you were saying earlier, you were during your admin time, you were reviewing your profit and loss statements, your balance sheets, income statements. We do budgeting. So all of these things I got to learn as being an owner, that I wouldn't have been able to if I was an associate.
So prior to that, you were just kind of seeing the revenue that you were driving into the practice, not just what was happening overall in the practice.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. I was only seeing what what was within my own, and not seeing what other people were doing and what the overhead was, and how much money was spent on marketing, and how
Hmm.
much money was spent on payroll and those types of
Yeah. When you joined the practice, were you the only optometrist?
when I joined the practice, I was the only full-time optometrist.
Right.
Uh,
So, Vin, like it seems that in the last 3 to 4 years, your practice has changed a little,
yeah,
right? I mean, there's
yeah.
there's a lot that's happened. It sounds like they added an ophthalmologist, added optometrist. Like,
Yeah.
tell us about the growth that has happened in the years that you've been there.
Yeah, no, so we've grown a lot, right? We've changed, the our vision and our mission, so to speak. In the beginning, when before I was hired, they did have optometrists working, but they were mainly there to do like routine comp exams, right? So it was just like,
Hmm.
all the VSPs and all the MESs and things like that. And that's the basic routine stuff that optometrists did. But as soon as I got hired on, they were like, well, no, optometrists, they're medical, optometrists. They can take care of all of these things, and I want them to take care of all these things. So we've grown away from the sort of optical side
Right.
and
You were just
more.
telling me you made a big change in your optical.
Yeah, absolutely. So then, as of June of this year, we decided to basically stop all optical. So we no longer provide routine and routine eye care and contact lenses. We now divvy that out to our referral network because it wasn't part of our mission. And
Hmm.
we, as a secondary center, we want to focus on the medical aspects of optometry and ophthalmology, and do what we would do best, which is dry eye, lasers for LASIK, refractive surgery, plastics and things like that.
Yeah. So what do you feel is coming for the next couple of years? What are you excited about for the growth in the next couple of years? What do you feel your practice is going to grow into?
Yeah, so right now we're it's going to be really exciting because what's happening is we moved into this new building, quote unquote, but it's been 3 years already. And in the 3 years that we've grown so much that we need more space. So because we closed our optical side down, we are currently in the process of just gutting out the optical and then just remodeling it so we can grow and have more space and so we can do more things. So in the next 3 to 5 years, it's only going to get bigger. We're gonna get into a little bit more into plastics, potentially hire a plastic surgeon
Hmm.
and a dermatologist, so that way we can kind of focus on the sort of the aesthetics. Our A good portion of our practice focuses a little bit on the aesthetic sides, and I think that's how you hedge yourself against insurance payments and things like that. You make your practice more cash pay versus
Yeah.
insurance pay. So we're gonna grow, and we're probably gonna need another ophthalmologist too, because currently our two ophthalmologists are booked out like 6 to 8 weeks.
Oof.
So we need the space. We need the So it's definitely going to be exciting. We're a well-oiled machine at this time, based on the amount of little space that we have. I can't imagine in 3 to 5 years when we have even more space, it's going to be even
It's going to
bigger.
explode. That's
It's going to
exciting.
explode. Yes, and
Wow.
the nice thing is it's all of this we've done sort of organically, right? We haven't like crazy done any crazy marketing or anything like that. We just you know, Daniel Chang, who's the main partner, he loves Jim Collins, right? Jim Collins wrote this book, which is
Good to
Good to
great.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, Good to Great, and in Good to Great, it talks about sort of the hedgehog concept, right? And the hedgehog
Hmm.
concept is you can't be a jack of all trades. You got to be good at one thing and just be really really good at one thing and just do it really well. Well, that's what we're trying to do. Is just he's trying to hone in on his craft, be be the best, cataract surgeon, premium IOL, presbyopia correcting type of IOLs and things like that. I'm trying to be, dry eye focused and just, take care of the patient so I can be, the best that I can be in the dry eye space. So it's great.
So you mentioned this earlier, and just kind of as a closing question. So if there's people that are out there who are thinking of wanting, to do what you've done, what are some qualities in an ophthalmology practice that they would look to before they would consider asking, "Can I buy in?" You mentioned some qualities of the ophthalmologists that you work with. What would that look like as far as a working relationship beforehand, and what kind of qualities in an ophthalmologist would they maybe be looking at?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that there's been a sort of a shift in at least from what I can see in the ophthalmologists, right? So, you've got the old guard ophthalmologist who thinks that the optometrists of, back in the day, they're just refractionists, right? So those guys, it's going to be very, very difficult. But then you got sort of the younger ones, kind of like the Daniel Changs of the ophthalmologists, who are much more open because during their training they're working hand in hand with OD fellows in the university settings. You got we've got friends that work in the ophthalmology departments are teaching these residents, right? So then they can see what we're capable of. And I think that if you look for a little bit of a younger, I would say 50 or under in terms of ophthalmologists, you'll be more likely to for them to be open to partnering with an optometrist. That would be a one tip there. The other one would be just try it out. The thing is that you don't know someone until you work with them side by side, day in, day out, and see what they're like on a personality basis. Do they treat you with respect? Do they see you as an equal? Do they see you as a colleague, or do they see you as a as an associate, or as a person that's beneath them, under you? Those are the qualities that you have to look for in the ophthalmologist, so that would be like, well, there's not going to be an opportunity there.
Yeah, that side by side, I think, is the real key aspect that you brought up. I sure appreciate you. Thank you. And thank you for joining us for the episode. You're a stud, and I love listening to the things that you say. You have done such a great job of educating us in the dry eye space, and certainly on the surgical side. So thank you for what you do, my man.
Hey, Dave, you were my mentor in the beginning. I remember when we first met 5 years ago, you gave me a bunch of, I remember that one tip that you told me, you say yes to everything until you say you can no longer say yes. And
that's right.
That's awesome. But I appreciate all the things that you do, and appreciate all the advice, and it's you're helping, you're making a difference, and that's what
Thanks,
we're trying
buddy.
to do.
Thanks, buddy. And we appreciate you, the listener. Thank you for joining us for this episode. Make sure to like and subscribe, and tell everybody that you know about the Optometric Insights show, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.